I'm really pumped for today's episode. So we have none other than marketing guru Simon Leadbetter. Simon has had loads of big roles, but ultimately right now he's running his own marketing consultancy business. And what I've said to him is, Simon, you know so much. I've seen you on stage recently. I've seen your events blow up on LinkedIn with thunder clapping away. You're really making an impact on the stage. And so first of all, thank you. But I've got a question for you. And that is, if you're an estate agent based in Birmingham, Belfast or Bognor Regis, listening to this, we've got 15, 20 minutes. What tips can you give them that they can go and implement in their business from today?
That's a really good question. Thank you so much for inviting me to this. Real pleasure. I like the fact it's going to be quick pace because I can talk for England about marketing, as you probably already know. But yeah, I mean, I talk about this a lot, and actually, I sometimes worry I sound like a broken record. But so far, a lot of the industry actually hasn't got the message, and it's really, really simple. There are just four things you need to make sure you are mastering in your marketing. Now, of course, there's a billion things to master. But when it comes down to marketing, the things that will absolutely drive responses for you are you maximizing your email collection and usage? Are you all over social media? Are you doing direct mail? And have you built your personal brand through PR? Those four things will absolutely land every time. Now, as a marketer, my instinct is to start with PR and go, it's all about your personal brand, it's all that kind of stuff. But when I speak to agents all the time, they just want the phone to ring, the emails to come, the messages to come in. So I reverse the logic, reverse the polarity, and email, social, direct, and get your PR sorted. If you can do those four things, I have spoken to managing directors, I have spoken to chief executives, and I've spoken to self-employed people. They go, yeah, I do social media. I don't really do email. Why direct mail? Don't do that. Like those three channels and PR, email, social, direct, PR, you will win because I have so much data behind me that backs up my argument is the winning brands maximize those four things. And that's it. We're done. Fantastic. Thanks. I'll catch you later.
All right. So let's say I'm a branch manager up in Solihull in the West Midlands, right? I own an independent or what have you. I'm listening to this going, yeah, but I'm not a Knight Frank or a big name. We actually send out a property of the week newsletter, etc. Is that the right thing? Now, I know it's not. And I want you to just go for the jugular here, right? Because I think in the UK, we archive data, which is crazy if they're no longer looking. We're not pillars of our community on email. And as you know, I've been fortunate enough to fly around the world, whether it's Malaysia, whether it's Canada, whether it's the state, and geek and learn very best practice from agents around the world. And they all have robust email strategy plans, 36 touches they call them, or 66 touches.
Yeah.
Can you just go for the jugular? So again, I want agents into this to take action rather than go, oh, I think what we do is good enough.
It's got nothing to do about being Knight Frank. It's got nothing to do with what brand you are. It's about doing the right kind of marketing for your audience. You know, the evidence I've got, again, people from 20EA and people like that have given me the data is if you absolutely focus on either your locality or your demography, so wealthy people being Knight Frank, where I live around Boxford in Hertfordshire being my locality. If I target one of those two things, a type of person or a locality of people, and I gather as much email by all means I can from that audience, if someone gives you their email, they've already opted into communicating with you. You're already part way down the journey of actually someone going, you know what, I want to hear what you say. And the one thing about property is the Brits love property. It is a national pastime after weather that we love talking about property. So if you can create an online newsletter, well done. That's a great start. But that isn't enough. You need to pick up news that's going on in the market because a lot of that, the big firms where I've worked like Knight Frank will produce interesting insight, but it's national, it's regional, it's not local. Your job is to take that insight and go, we've seen this, fascinating insight. What that means for the people of, was it Solihull we mentioned, or Sunderland, or Bognor Regis, or Boxmoor where I live, it's kind of like what that means for people around here. include in the subject line Boxmoor, Solihull, Sunderland, whatever it is, for the people of Sunderland, for the people of Solihull. And that they're already bought into you. And one thing is if you use a proper engine like MailChimp or HubSpot, is it gets a tracking code. And someone was saying to me the other day, who's the chief executive of a firm, is we've sent this email out. It's been read by this one email to one person. It's read by 36 people. And we went, it's not, it's been shared. The point is you've created sticky content that people have gone, that's really interesting. I said that with my mother, my aunt, my uncle, my brother, my sister, my friend, my boss, because we know they're looking at buying or selling a house. And when I look at the data, email amongst people who are genuinely planning to buy or sell a house in the next 12 months is by far number one in terms of driving an action. So for them actually to do something, it's email is number one.
So from a specific then, hit me with a couple of ideas. So I'm a branch manager again up in Solihull, or I own an independent. Something like, what impact will this year's general election have on Solihull property prices? Would that work? Fine.
Yeah. Your art is not to have a political view, but to talk about the implications of general elections on a market, to talk about what's going on with the house price index. We are an industry drowning in really good data and insight. Take that data and insight and make it relevant to your local community. Don't just share the national stats. Talk about the fact that what that means on a local basis or a regional basis is this. But what I feel for the people who live in this specific community is this. And the normal rule, which is universal across all of real estate across the country, is there is no better time to sell than now, if you want to sell and you want to buy. Because the reality is, if the market comes down a bit, the whole market comes down a bit. So what you're going to buy is come down a bit. So in reality, and you don't know, it's going to come down a bit and then fall off a cliff, or it's going to go bouncing it back up again. But in the timescales you're dealing with, you'll have bought and sold within the period of the kind of the gradual up and down of the pricing market. And to be honest with you, general elections aside, the market's looking really positive for 2024.
So give me, again, I'm sat here listening to this before we switch on to your second point, because I know we're making this quick fire. Give me two of the topics that I could maybe think about putting out in the next few months.
Yeah, so the key one is every single month we get the Halifax, we get the Nationwide, we get the Land Registry, bring them together, collect the commentary from the trade press, and create your comment once a month about what the market is doing. People don't know what's going on in the market. They're most likely to turn to their family and friends to get advice. You're the experts. You're the estate agent or the lettings agent who knows the market, the local market better than anyone else. Bring in anecdote, bring in local experience, what's going on in your local area. So that's kind of the key thing. And I think the other thing is ask your audience a question. If you got an email database, go back to them and say, what are the questions you always wanted to ask about property that you were too afraid to ask? And I'll answer them in the next newsletter. Turn what is a monologue, sending out an email, into a dialogue of them feeding back to you. You might get a 1% response rate. You might get 2% response rate. But that 1%, 2% are people actually telling you the questions that they fear. Then you can use that content to create a webinar. You can do an email shot. All my audience, and the secret code here, a secret thing here is no one else knows how many people have responded. Even if one person comes back with 24 questions, you can say the overwhelming response we've had from our audience is these are the 24 questions. And another word to the wise is slip in the questions you wish they'd asked. So people don't know what they don't know. So you want to drop into there the questions that they should be asking of other estate agents, and you will show that you can answer them. So those two things, there's the broadcast, what's going on in the market, and making it absolutely hyper relevant. And the second one is, on a regular basis, quarterly, go to the audience and say, what are your concerns? What are your questions? I will answer them. In my next email shot, I will get all the questions together. And the joy of that is that kind of fear and greed or fear of missing out is you want to kind of know what your neighbors are asking. And I will act as the conduit of that to go, these are what your neighbors are asking. You're asking this question, but your neighbors asking this question. We all benefit from the wisdom of the crowd. We all benefit from the wisdom of the crowd's questions. You will all gain from me giving you the answers. So that's the two things I would do over the next 6-12 months.
Nice. All right. Number 2.
Social media. So a lot of people say they're doing social media, and you go, what's social media doing? You go, Facebook. So, okay, that's great, you're doing Facebook. And it is true that people who are buying and selling are more likely to use Facebook than the population as a whole. But let's face it, pretty much everyone is on Facebook, and Facebook is becoming a very, very busy place. You want to have 3 or 4 social media channels. And you go, oh, I only got one. If you haven't got one, all the data I get from my Voice of the Agent survey is you won't grow. The most successful growing agents are all over social media, and they're all over more than one. Again, the data I've got in terms of what social media people are buying or selling in the next 12 months are used, it goes Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, LinkedIn. There are 5. Pick 4 of them. You don't have to be on all of them. Pick 3 or 4 of them. What I find really interesting, if you actually look at the data again, things like LinkedIn, TikTok are right up in there in terms of while fewer of the population use them, people who are about to buy or sell are much more likely to be on those platforms than on other platforms. So good old LinkedIn, 34% of people who are going to buy or sell in the next 12 months are in LinkedIn, compared to only 18% of the population. So a third of people who are going to buy and sell in the next 12 months are on LinkedIn. Only an 18% chunk, under a fifth, are on LinkedIn. So people on LinkedIn are much more engaged in the buying and selling journey. And that's the kind of data my business produces. Is we all know the general stats. Facebook is number one. But what you're looking for is a point of difference. So if you're just doing no social media, you might as well pack up and go home in 2024. But do at least one channel. And yes, it probably should be Facebook. But don't just do Facebook. There's brilliant companies out there who can help you. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X/Twitter, and LinkedIn, and TikTok has risen. I mean, in the last 4 years of me monitoring it, it's gone from like 8% of people buying and selling to about, what's like a number, 30% are actually active in the last month on TikTok. So as many as you can cope with, and obviously social media, so make it a dialogue rather than just a broadcast. It's not a broadcast channel. It's about one-to-one communication and getting in, liking and commenting other people's stuff. But social media, it pulls not quite as hard as LinkedIn because there's not an initial engagement you have with email, but it pulls the second hardest, which leaves one more to do before PR, which is our friend direct mail.
Okay, fine. So direct mail, we've had Simon Gates on. Everyone pretty much sees Simon Gates as the direct mail guru. You get splits on this. You get people going, it doesn't work. People saying it does work. For my mistake, Simon, I, as a typical agent, as I see myself, a man of the people, I'll start it, I'll stop it. I don't want to spend too much on it. Lo and behold, I'll get a call 6 months later saying, oh, we've held your letter and we want you to come and value a property at 4 million quid. And I'm thinking, you Wally, Chris. Does it work? How much do I need to spend on it? What tools should I use? What should I put in the letters? We've only got 5 minutes for this one.
So big fan of Simon Gates. So great he's building on this. And I presume he's going out before I do this one. But yeah, big fan of what Simon Gates does. He's right. It comes third. I always joke with him about this after email, social, but direct is right there. Top 3. That is final position, gold, silver, bronze. That's absolutely great. The thing about email is there's quite an art to doing email and getting it right. There's more science to email in terms of getting it right and getting through blockers, and you get blocked and all that. The point about direct mail is you have something called a legitimate interest. You have a legitimate interest to talk to someone in a community about the fact you're an estate agent. Now, as long as you've done a legitimate interest assessment, you can send a letter to someone if it's just to the house. Use their name, gets into all GDPR complexities, but we'll get into that separately through your database. Social media. I heard someone use a stat of mine, but they quoted it wrong. Someone said you scroll the height of the Eiffel Tower a day on social media. Not true. You scroll 3 times the height of the Eiffel Tower a day on social media. The average house in the UK receives 1.4 letters. So if you send a letter, and I don't mean a mass-produced letter, I mean a well-created, brilliant piece of direct mail. I used to run the largest direct mail business in the UK. We did with the largest direct mailer in the UK at Barclaycard. So I learned a lot of the art of it. Be one of 1.4 rather than one of 3 hours of scrolling on one of however many emails. The average Brit gets 40 emails a day. I get way more than that. So it's kind of like, you've got to get your email to stand out. Be one of 1.4. And some great data I saw, 95% of direct mail is engaged with. So people will read it. People will save it. People will put a fridge magnet on it against it and say, when we're looking, let's talk to these guys. I am slightly skeptical of the mass-produced Frank stuff. That's so obviously created by a machine. You are far better to find a local direct mail company, talk to them, get the data for one of these third parties, get the triggers. But if it's just going out through a system, so is everyone else. Again, we said at the beginning, your point is to be different, to have a point of differentiation. And with direct mail, when it's becoming easier to do, the friction's been taken away. You want to make yours stand out. Put a business card on it, put a tip on it, put a call to action, really powerful email techniques that I teach on my courses. Your direct mail is vital to driving a response. And the one thing about property, we know where you live. I once sold a house for a dead person. What I mean by that is we used to produce a magazine at Knight Frank and we delivered it to the most expensive houses in the UK, regardless of who lived there. We were contacted by the son of someone who died and said, clearly my father liked Knight Frank. Would you mind listing this house? So even though it didn't go to the person who used to get the Knight Frank content and read it, the point was the people who received it went, okay, there's a brand affinity here. Let's solicit it with them, and we sold it. So direct mail is incredibly powerful. I'm probably at my time limit. I said
No,
talk
no,
for
so,
England.
so what I'm hearing now, again, I'm that branch manager, I'm the independent or whatever. I'm going, I actually don't do that. First of all, be consistent with it. So set a budget aside, be consistent with it. Two, be one of the 1.4. So don't cut back on it. Just allocate money towards it and make sure it's in your budget. One of the things that I'm personally doing and trialing on behalf of the estate agency is I know that a red envelope and handwritten for all of that stuff gets the best open rate. I also know I'm
Handwritten.
right, but I also know I'm not going to do it. So because I'm an agent and whilst I know it's good, so what we're doing at the estate agency is going right. How do we use your specters, your home searches, your properly all of those tools, but when they're opened, our letter is handwritten, it's got backgrounds, it's got link trees, it's engaging, because I know the first bit, but I'm not going to do it. But what I could do is set them all up once and then forget about them, but have them going out. What's your view on that?
100%. You said the golden word of marketing, consistency. And the other C that fits really nice that is campaigns. Thinking campaigns. Divide your year into 3, 4 blocks, and everything you do in each of those blocks, either the third or the quarter, the 3 months or the 4 months, is for this quarter we're focusing on this message. It will go out through email, social, and direct. We then move to the next quarter or the next third. It's social, so email, social, and direct. And for the final quarter, final third, it's email, social, and all the messages are consistent. You want to hit people with the same message. And if you look at the seasonality of the property market, it does naturally fall into thirds or quarters. If you produce a magazine, you produce 3 or 4 a year to actually hit the seasons within the industry. So direct mail's the same, email's the same, social's the same. Reflect our number one hobby, the weather, and that's your seasons laid out in many ways. So spell out that way. But consistent is everything. But tricks like handwritten letters, there's tools out there that will do it through AI, which are fantastic. You can't tell the difference because it's all different sized fonts and different size ink depth and all that kind of stuff. Make it as authentic as possible. And then there's a lot to be said for hand delivering things, which is not direct mail, which isn't so email, which isn't social media. But sometimes if you really want a house, hand deliver something to it.
What do you mean knock on the door?
Yeah.
Oh, that's another story for another day. That could be number 5.
I wasn't going to talk about door knocking, although I know it works for a lot of people. I've got the data to prove it. The reality is I want to know what you can do from a marketing perspective. Door knocking's down to an agent, and whether they want to or they don't, it's a personal style thing. Email, everyone can do. Social, everyone can do. Direct mail, everyone can do. We won't have time to talk about PR, but the one thing I will say about very briefly is just reach out to all your local media companies and say, I'm happy to provide a comment about the property market locally. It's free. You gain their credibility, the other C. Consistency, campaigns, and credibility. Talk to them. You'll get some mileage with them because the people want to talk about property.
I really like that. Do you know, I did that once, ended up on the BBC Breakfast, and everyone took the piss out of how short my socks were on national TV. But if I hadn't have taken that opportunity, I wouldn't have that there, right?
The first person they can reach who responds is the one who'll get on. and you want to make sure that you're always accessible, because the coverage you get by getting on the BBC or ITV or Sky is so extraordinary. You then can amplify that content on every channel, as seen on ITV, as seen on BBC.
Yeah.
Use it, sweat it.
I remember getting back to the office. Everyone was out, so I went from being on national breakfast TV to manning the phones because everyone was at the office. And someone rang up and started giving me some jip, and I thought it was a mate. Turns out it was a vendor, and he said, I was going to sack you today, but how do I sack someone when I turn on the BBC breakfast and see them on not once but twice? You've got 2 more weeks. So there we go. We didn't sell it in the end, but that's by the by. It bought me 2 weeks.
That's other stuff. The point is, there'll be people who'll be thinking about you. It's all about getting front of mind with people, and email, social, direct, and PR will do it for you.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is reach out to the local Facebook community groups, reach out to the local papers, reach out to local news outlets.
Loads of places have parish magazines. Reach out to the local parish council and say, if ever you want me to comment about property, I'm more than happy to comment about property. A lot of the local agents will have sewn up their parish magazine. Doesn't mean that you're not entitled to give a comment. And it's often things are more credible if there's more than one person speaking about it. So be one of the other people speaking about it. Talk about PR, write the articles you want it to be published. Most local newspapers have got no budget left. They'll just top it and tail it, put a different byline on, and they'll publish exactly what you've written. So write an article, not a press release.
Nice. I'm going to put you on the spot here because I didn't prep you for this. I know. Dun, dun, dun. Again, you've taken down all this gold. You're going to go action. All of this stuff.
There's some terrible connectivity problems. I seem to be losing signal.
Yeah. No, you're not getting away with this one. But I do like putting people on the spot. Of all the things you've discussed, or another from all of your years in the estate agency, bearing in mind we're at the start of 24, it can be a marketing tip, it can be a door knocking tip, it can be anything. What's one thing that I should be doing that I'm maybe not?
Oh, that is such a good question. I've got so many, but I'm going to go for one, which is I could talk about personal brand and its importance. I could talk about just answer the bloody phone. We could talk about that. But I think the one thing I'm going to go for is no, I'm going to do it because I've got the data. I've got hard data. Other things are opinion. I'm not going to go for opinion. I'm going to go for data. The strongest evidence I've got, and I've never seen it in any other industry outside estate agency, and I've worked in a lot of industries, is your brand really matters. The correlation between your brand awareness and your number of instructions and long-term customer market share is so off the charts with this industry. It's like 91% correlation, which means there is a direct, near one-to-one relationship. So whether you're a self-employed individual, an independent agency, or a national chain, don't just focus on the things I've just discussed today, getting people to call you today. Focus on the long-term brand that you're building and how you're perceived in your market as the property expert for whatever sector, community, demography that you reach. If you're not devoting enough time to building your personal brand is essentially what we used to call in marketing reputation. You've got to build your reputation in an industry that's not very well trusted. Be the local expert, be the one that people can reach out to. And under that, because you want to build your reputation, treat everyone the same as equally important. Don't see buyers as less important than sellers, tenants as less important than landlords. Because guess what? Buyers are sellers, sellers are buyers, landlords are tenants, tenants are landlords. Is it like 1 in 5 landlords are tenants? You have no idea where they are in their customer journey. Treat them as a 4th or 5th dimensional customer where every single person, and get their bloody email address. Get them into your email database and start cultivating them.
Simon, that's
personal brand. Personal brand.
I love it. I'm a huge advocate of personal brand, as you know. Listen, there's too much gold in here. You've given me a problem now. I'm gonna have to type up loads of show notes, but I really appreciate you. I'm sure everyone listening to this is going, geez, there's a lot of gold. Even as an agent, if you're watching, if you listen to this, even if you take 2 or 3 pieces and run with them, well, a minimum of 3, you'll see an improvement in your business. And that's all we want to get out of this podcast. So Simon, thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you soon, sir.
Take care, Chris. Love to talk to you.